You're telling me these apes have had the exact same style of clothes for almost 2,000 years? Hey everybody, welcome to Mainely Movies. Continuing my Planet of the Apes review series, today I'm going to be talking about the fifth film in the franchise, 1973's sci-fi sequel, Battle for the Planet of the Apes. If you're new here, please consider subscribing for a variety of movie-related content like reviews, rank lists, and trailer reactions. All my reviews include a breakdown of the pros and cons, my rating, and some tailored film recommendations, so be sure to watch through to the end of this video for all of that extra content. Battle for the Planet of the Apes stars Roddy McDowall, Claude Akins, and Severn Darden, and was directed by Thompson. It tells the story of ape leader Caesar as he tries to keep peace between humans and apes following the collapse of human civilization. Franchises in the 60s and 70s were a pretty wild thing. Putting out a new sequel nearly every year was the norm, and so when this fifth and final film of the original Planet of the Apes series was released, only 5 years had elapsed since the first film hit theaters. It would be easy, and understandable, to assume that this was the final film in the series due to its poor reception, but the end of the film series had already been decided upon before its release. All of the Apes movies had been profitable, but that margin of profit was diminishing with each successive film, as were the budgets. By the time this fifth movie was being produced, the rights had already been sold to TV, which resulted in the single-season TV show the following year. And Battle for the Planet of the Apes was already being advertised as the final chapter of the Apes film saga. It was a preemptive financial decision, but ultimately, probably the correct decision. Just like Conquest of the Planet of the Apes was a direct follow-up to Escape from the Planet of the Apes, Battle for the Planet of the Apes continues the storyline of its predecessor. But this time, it's not done in a particularly satisfying way. We're faced with another time jump to an unspecified future year, with only minor clues giving us a sense of timing. Clues like the fact that Caesar's still alive and has a young son of his own. Human civilization has collapsed after destroying itself with nuclear weapons, while Caesar has built a community where apes and humans coexist in something close to peace. They're not equals, but the humans aren't slaves or test subjects yet either. This basic setup is fine, and there's some interesting plot lines early on, but things start to go downhill once the primary antagonist shows up and the titular battle begins. There are some clever connections to Beneath the Planet of the Apes, which are sort of fun from a recognition and reference standpoint, but the progression of the story quickly starts to drag, and even with the action of the battle sequences, the movie becomes increasingly dull. There are more characters involved in the story than the previous film, and certainly more talking apes, but Roddy McDowall's Caesar is still the star here. He's changed a good deal though. Gone is the angry revolutionary who led the uprising in Conquest of the Planet of the Apes, instead replaced by a calm, human-tolerant leader. He's aged an unspecified number of years, so that likely contributed to his toned-down personality, but it's still a somewhat jarring transition when you watch the two films back to back. Paul Dane's original script would have continued the darkly violent streak for the character and the movie, but the script was rewritten to be more in line with the conciliatory theatrical cut ending of Conquest. So this version of Caesar is much closer to the calm, thoughtful, human-accepting Cornelius of the earlier movies. But rather than a scientist, he's in a position of power as the leader of Ape City. As always, Roddy McDowall gives a good performance, probably finding it easy to step back into this Cornelius-like role. The budgets of the Planet of the Apes movies had been steadily declining from the start, often being halved from one film to the next. The low budget had been noticeable in Conquest of the Planet of the Apes, but this fifth movie was the first to be noticeably hampered by the low budget. Everything about this movie feels and looks cheap and reused. It makes sense to reuse available costumes, of course, but the quality had declined. And apart from a few key chimps and orangutans, the ape makeup and masks were noticeably low quality. Sound effects, dialogue clips, and even actual shots are reused over and over again in the film. The filmmakers obviously had to make do with what they had available to them, but the low budget really shows this time. The cautionary anti-war themes and continued speciesism allegories are still thoughtful, but it was clear that this was a storyline running out of steam, and out of bite. Perhaps to leave the franchise on a hopeful note, or perhaps to plant the seeds of an idea regarding time travel's effect on altering the timeline, Battle for the Planet of the Apes is the only original Apes movie not to end on a deflatingly bleak note. The message it delivers in doing so is an admirable one, but I've gotta say, it feels far less impactful to end an Apes film on a positive note. Alright, let's talk about the pros and cons. The biggest pro is Roddy McDowall as Caesar. While not quite as good as he was in Conquest of the Planet of the Apes as Caesar, or in Planet of the Apes and Escape from the Planet of the Apes as Cornelius, his performance and the character here are the sole bright spots in this otherwise underwhelming sequel. McDowall's certainly at ease here with this character, pulling back on the fiery, revolutionary angle and falling into a much more Cornelius-like personality. This change is probably mostly due to the desire to counterbalance the violence of the previous film, but it works as an interesting examination of leadership techniques as well. On the con side, the biggest issue is the production quality, which is almost entirely due to the film's low budget. All of the Apes sequels had been fairly low budget, but the progressive decrease finally had a noticeably negative effect here with this one. The sets, the costumes and masks, even things like audio and visual clips, everything here has a cheap and reused quality to it that just isn't able to match the scope and scale of the story it's attempting to tell. Con number 2 is the script. This story has some interesting ideas, and I appreciate the attempts to connect things to previous Apes movies, especially Beneath the Planet of the Apes, but the plot feels subpar. It's a slow story that abandons its few interesting or new ideas in favor of a dull battle plotline that adds little excitement, character growth, or intrigue. It feels like an attempt to recapture elements of the original film, but does so even more unnecessarily than Beneath the Planet of the Apes had. Before I give you my rating and recommendations, I want to remind you that if you're interested in buying Battle for the Planet of the Apes or any of the other films I mentioned today, I do have affiliate links for all of them in the description below. I get a small commission from anything you buy using one of my links, so I'd really appreciate it if you use them if you're in the market for any of these movies. I'm gonna give Battle for the Planet of the Apes 2 out of 5 paws. This is a sequel emblematic of a franchise that had run out of steam and interesting ways to present its repeated themes. Roddy McDowall's Caesar brings a bit of thoughtfulness to the proceedings, but this is a dull story that's significantly and noticeably hampered by its low budget. I would recommend Battle for the Planet of the Apes to franchise completionists. This film doesn't really act as a satisfying follow-up to the Revolution storyline started in Conquest of the Planet of the Apes, so people looking for more of that story or dark action will be disappointed. This is the low point of the original series, and doesn't offer much that's new to appeal to newcomers or casual Apes fans. This is one for a Planet of the Apes marathon, and that's about it. If you liked Battle for the Planet of the Apes, I would recommend Mad Max 2. The post-apocalyptic setting already accounts for some similarity right off the bat, but this is another movie about a small community trying to fend off an attack by a band of dusty, old car-driving marauders, though the Road Warrior is certainly more action-intensive than Apes is. If you liked the storyline here and want another similar Apes movie, you should check out Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. The second film in the reboot of the Apes series, this film focuses on Caesar as he tries to prevent an all-out war between apes and the remaining humans. Maybe you liked the underground dwellers here, and would like another similar original series ape movie. Beneath the Planet of the Apes is the second film in the original series, and although the first half of the film is essentially a rehash of the original movie, the second half directly ties into ideas, characters, and themes retroactively established here in Battle. Alright, a couple questions for you guys. Number 1, have you seen Battle for the Planet of the Apes? If so, what'd you think of it? And number 2, what's your favorite 5th movie in a franchise? Be sure to leave your answers in the comments below, so we can get a discussion going. Alright, so if you got some enjoyment, insight, or information out of this review, I'd appreciate it if you'd hit that like button. And if you haven't done so already, please hit subscribe or add it to see more videos like this. Till next time, this has been Alyssa with Mainely Movies, the way life should be.